North Country. Welcome back for another episode of Why Wait Innovate. We are here with episode 39. I think that was a little shocking to a couple of us here in the studio. We've been doing it here for the entire 2018 year. So my name is Matthew Waite. I'll be your host for the next hour or so. As most of our listeners know, the mission here at Why Wait Innovate is to highlight North Country voices of citizens, activists, innovators, artists working to move our region forward. Today we have one of those very individuals in studio today, Miss Nancy Arquette. Thank you so much for joining us, Nancy.
Thank you for having me.
Way out from the western part of the North Country. So for our listeners who may not be familiar with our guest, Nancy is the owner of Two Mama Birds, a custom handmade jewelry boutique shop located in Main Street in Messina. She also happens to be running for St. Lawrence County Legislature. So thanks for joining us, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Potsdam, raised in Potsdam, and moved to Messina, graduated high school from Messina Central School. I attended SUNY Canton. And from there, I ran an office, a medical office in Potsdam, New York for Dr. Donald Henline. Shortly after getting married, we decided to have a family. And I left working at the doctor's office to become a stay-at-home mom and to raise my children.
So let's back up a little bit then. So in high school, what were you up to? Public school?
I did not play a lot of sports. I was a worker. I couldn't wait to get a job at 16.
Really?
Yep. And so started at 16 years old. I started working in a restaurant, and I loved being in the restaurant business. It was fast-paced. I loved working with customers and building those relationships. And so actually starting at 14 years old, I started working in a restaurant as a busgirl.
Oh, wow. Okay. So early introduction to the workforce, and you just took it and ran with it then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it sounds like you were just a worker bee in high school. What was your plans for college? Did you know for sure you were going to go get a secondary education?
I did. My plans were to go to law school.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm glad you figured that out and made the right decision.
Yes. Things change, as you know, and I decided to stay closer to home. I fell in love and wanted to stick here a little bit longer and see that out. So I attended a SUNY school, decided that I wanted to go into major psychology. I decided to take a semester off, and you know how things happen. As I transferred schools, I landed this job at a doctor's office as an office manager and loved everything that I did there.
Yeah, a little bit different than my path. I wanted to stay in school as long as I could and try to avoid the real world as it was called, and I think we still use that phrase. But man, you just hit the ground running. So sounds like family then was a huge part of your calculus. So SUNY Canton had a program that you felt worked into your life at that point?
I wanted to stay in the area and just in St. Lawrence County to be close to my family. And I knew that when I decided to raise a family, St. Lawrence County is where I wanted to be.
And you said, what your major you chose?
I was majoring in sociology and psychology.
And what was it about that major that kind of piqued your interest?
I love watching interactions with people and how the mind works and watching the flow of society. And I don't think it's not something that bores me. Then
you became a stay-at-home mom. Let's talk about that decision then. How did you form a living? I'm guessing your husband had a stream of income.
Yep. My husband is a lineman for the New York Power Authority. So we were able to make the decision to stay home. And I'm blessed that I'm able to stay home and take care of my children. During that time, I was able to be more one-on-one with my little ones and to focus on volunteering at the school, volunteering as a coach for sports, and just be more interactive.
So you were coaching even though you said back in the day wasn't necessarily your cup of tea. But you just wanted to be involved in any way possible.
I love sports.
Okay.
I love sports, but I am we're really far ahead, so let's put Nancy in because we're not going to lose. That's who I am.
All right, great. And what sports in particular?
I played basketball. I got one basket and I retired.
Yeah.
I think you should retire while you're
stay
ahead.
Stay on a high note, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I enjoy hockey immensely. I'm not that good at it. I did play in a women's league. Did not get any goals, but it was the aspect of the connections.
Yeah. And do your kids play?
My children play basketball. My daughter played hockey and softball.
So let's talk about the business then. I mean, obviously, it's 4 kids.
I have 4 children.
That's a full-time job. I mean, I've got one right now, and we have daycare, so the weekends, and I don't know how anyone does it with even more than one. I mean, I'm sure it fits in really well. But tell us a little bit about that transition and how you've been working on your family, but then eventually. They're getting a little older and you wanted to do something else for your own. So how did the business develop?
So we actually started Two Mama Birds in 2012, and that was shortly after I had my second child. There was a group of 5 girls that are very good friends. Our husbands know that we're kind of a package deal. And we always have Christmas together. We do cookie baking, a cookie exchange, and we exchange gifts. And we decided in 2012 that we were going to do a handmade Christmas. So I worked on putting together a necklace for one of my friends, and it was the original egg in the nest. I liked it, so I wore it a little bit. And as I wore it around, people enjoyed it. They asked if I could make them one, and in the 2 weeks before Christmas, I had over 60 orders. So I reached out to Brittany Murtaugh, who is my business partner and best friend, and we decided to try it out and start small. We started going to small craft fairs, doing some home parties, and it just really took off. It grew. How I work my family into it is we have integrated it. The children come and they help work at the shop. They help us pack supplies, pack mailers. They come to craft festivals with us or artisan festivals. We want them to know that this is not just a fun time, that our moms aren't going just for a weekend away, that it's work, and that so they can appreciate the value.
Yeah, and I think we'll get into this. You know, it seems like one of the things you're trying to do is you're trying to bring fun into work and into politics, and I think the family can help do that. Mm-hmm. All right, great. So per your Instagram account, I saw it all started with one little nest. What began as a Christmas gift soon grew into a thriving business between two lifelong friends. So it sounds like Brittany Murtaugh and yourself. So you have both a store location in Messina, I believe, as well as online, I'm guessing. Where can our listeners find that?
So we have, in downtown Messina, we have our brick and mortar store. That's at 51 Main Street in Messina. We have our website, which is 2mamabirds.com. It's the number 2, mamabirds.com. And we are also located in over 16 stores throughout New York State.
No kidding. That's neat. And any shout outs? Any that we would know, our listeners
Well,
here?
we really love, one of our favorite spots is the Larac art gallery in Glens Falls.
Yeah, I love the poetic introduction that I guess your potential consumers get. We are elegant and casual, strong but tender, classic and modern, feminine and fearless, independent but connected. We are mothers, daughters, sisters, grandmothers, aunts, wives, friends. We are women. We are all 2 mama birds. So I think that's beautiful. Very, speaks to femininity and strength. Who came up with that? Is that something that you developed or your partner?
No, we didn't actually. We strive to really keep our customers involved and to hear what their needs are. And one way that we do it is we reached out over social media. So when we decided to really expand and break into a brick and mortar, we wanted something, a slogan perhaps that people would remember. And so we put out a contest on social media. And we had many entries, and this was just our favorite. It really spoke to who we were.
Let's try and bridge the gap then from the college. I imagine you got a degree in either sociology or psychology.
I did not.
Okay.
I did not. When I decided to take a break, I was a few credits short. And like I said, I started working.
Life happened.
Well, no, I started working at this medical office. I really loved it. I figured for the few credits that I needed left, I would wait and kind of see what I wanted to do.
And the segue I was trying to make was to try and figure out how this artistry came in.
Brittany has always been artistic. I not so much.
Through diffusion or as osmosis, you're probably getting some of that from her.
Yeah. So, but it's a lot of work. It was also taking classes and kind of absorbing anything we could, whether you're watching YouTube videos or you're going to another artist and learning technique. I'm a learner, and when I want to learn how to do something, when I want to work at something, I never mind asking for help. I never mind asking for direction, which I think is really the only way that you can, right? I could never come out and say I'm a master of something, because it's all these little pieces that came in together.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit more about the products that you offer, and then maybe we'll get into how the two of you work together. So it looks like necklaces. Tell us a little bit more about what you offer.
Yeah,
earrings.
We do
beautiful custom jewelry.
Yep, we do custom jewelry. We do earrings, necklaces, bracelets. The medium that we use is sterling silver, and we use accent with freshwater pearls. We try to keep a real organic feel. We really enjoy nature infused. It all started with the Nest collection, which is how we grew our name in our area. People recognize us for that.
So let's talk about the Nest collection then. I mean, how did that start? Sounded with just that one?
So we started with the 1 egg nest, and then the Nest collection itself goes up to 4 eggs and then on. And then we have a special collection for grandparents that we call the Flow in the Coop. So that has your children and the grandchildren and everything. It was just it's just evolved over time. I mean, we couldn't have ever guessed that we would have gotten as far as we were. But again, it's just hard work and family support.
So it sounded like it almost started online and through a website. Is that fair to say? And then eventually you had the brick and mortar. Or did you try and get them together at the same time to open and do it all together?
No, we started, like I said, locally, really promoting it locally. And I find that to be held relevant, a website is something that you should have immediately. And so we had our website put together right away and started our online presence, our social media presence to build up character, because I think character is a lot of a small business. You can order a necklace online. You can go to a big box store. Why are you ordering from me? Why are you coming into my brick and mortar store? So it's more than just the product. The product is 75%, but the other 25% is personality. And it's the part of your heart that you're giving to the customer.
Yeah, no, I love that because, just as I do going to and from and listening to podcasts, and some of them are talking about toy and the toy industry and, Toys R Us now going under. And why did that happen? Well, it's because they didn't really innovate, right? They weren't really doing anything to bring people to the stores. And I think that's what you're speaking to. And let's give a little shout out to your social media presence because you guys are killing it. I mean, Instagram, lots of followers, Facebook. And the thing that really stands out to me is, like you said, the fun aspect of it. All the pictures, you guys are just having a blast. So tell us about that then. Is it mostly just the connection with your partner, your business partner, Brittany? How you're able to just kind of foster that just happy-go-lucky, just come on in, let's have fun?
It is. What you see on our social media is what you get. That is her and I together. That is our lives. We want you to have that same feeling when you come into our store. And it is. It's the silliness that we show. It shouldn't always be serious, I think adult relationships and friendships are super important. And I have been blessed to have a friend like her for over 20 years. And our customers love it. They love to see what we're doing together. They love to follow our story. And I'm glad that we can share that with social media.
Yeah, and do you have a traditional print radio that you do, or mostly do you stick to social media?
Mostly we stick to social media.
Okay, and I think we said the Nest is located at 51 Main Street in Messina, New York. We'll provide links to our listeners, of course, so they can follow up with that information. And it sounds like you do have an online presence as well, though. They can go to the website, check that out. And I think I saw some really nice pictures, and it's really well done, your website. Who did that for you?
The website that we're using now, I built the website. And we use local business any way that we can. So we have local photographers that we utilize that take all of our photos for us.
So let's transition a little bit to politics. As I mentioned, you are now running for the St. Lawrence County Legislature, District 11. Interesting out there, I guess, that is it every 2 years? Or how do the elections work? Because everyone, I believe, is running this year. Is that correct?
Yes. So a county legislator.
15 different
districts. Yep. And the county legislator seats are 4-year terms.
Interesting. And they're just all at once. Let's
4-year terms. Yep.
It's interesting because a lot of different counties stagger them, you know what I mean, and tier them. So you guys are just everyone at once and one class, and you all kind of go in there. Okay, so let's talk about the decision. What was it that kind of was it something that shook loose in 2016? Was it a gradual evolution? I mean, I think if we didn't mention it, there's some politics in your family that I think we're going to get into. So what was it about this current political environment? Did you feel pretty comfortable with where you were at the business? Why stepping into the political world?
My heart has always been in politics. I grew up in a family that were activists, both human rights activists and labor force activists. It's not something that I'm new to, and it's something that I was hoping to carry on. Why now? I think that I was waiting for the right moment, family-wise, business-wise. The final decision came when I knew that my husband was on board. I think it's important to have the whole team on board. That's one thing that we always say to our children is a family is a team. You work together. You don't always want to work together, but that's what teamwork is. And so when I knew that my husband was fully on board, that's what made me finally make the announcement.
So I'll spoil this for our listeners. I had the opportunity to attend a St. Lawrence County fall dinner recently. Ernie LaBaff was one of the, if not the main honoree there, due to his lifetime in organized labor. So he served 10 years on the county legislature. Also, I think a very big member of the International Union of Aluminum and Brick Glass Workers, which I think in and around Messina means something because of Alcoa. I think we'll probably talk about some of those issues with Alcoa. in the local economy. But he got up and spoke, and it's instantly obvious to me, why he was getting honored, right? I mean, I knew he had a little bit of a background in labor, but I was actually kind of shocked that the first thing he seemed to mention was we need to get back to civility and away from bigotry and the politics of division. And to me, someone who works up here, we don't necessarily even have the most diverse area, but the fact that bigotry was something that he really bothered him about today's current politics, I think speaks a lot about who he is. Mm-hmm. And you referenced, I think, the human rights aspects that came up in your family. So what did you learn about him? I think there's the rumor I have that you have some sort of relationship with Ernie.
So Ernie is my grandfather, and he is also my very best friend. He is my mentor, and
sorry, Brittany.
Yeah, sorry, Brittany. Brittany is aware. There was it's something that I think everyone that knows me knows. There's no one above Ernie for me. Watching him and growing up in that household is really what molded me to be who I am and to want to go forward into politics and to want to make a difference in my community. We were raised in a house where you didn't sit at the table and complain about what was going on in your community. You got up and you fixed it. So we grew up at rallies. We grew up marching on picket lines. It wasn't uncommon to be in the kitchen making signs with your crayons to go down and help the union. The paper mill is a great example. When the paper mill was on strike, we marched those lines. So we didn't hear about it, we did it.
Yeah, I mean, Amy Guglielmo, who is on the program, and she's very active with the arts community, likes to call that creative complaining, right? If you want to complain, I think voting, I've referenced, is a way of creative complaining, and I think we have one of those coming up on November 6th, I believe. All right, so that's going to be a big day for you. But I just wanted to, I guess, follow up on, it sounds, what else, anything specific that you learned from Ernie and his work with organized labor? Were you able to get some labor endorsements? Is organized labor something that you feel has been important to American history?
Oh, I think organized labor is one of the most important things in American history. I mean, I think people take for granted. We don't talk about it anymore in high school. We don't learn it in social studies. But middle class, that's built by the unions and by the labor force. And in Northern New York, we have a strong labor force. We have a strong union presence. And so I am proudly endorsed by many of the unions in the North Country.
It was a little bit of a general evolution here. I saw Burchard Falls. Did I pronounce that
Fraser.
correctly? You were a legislative liaison for that district, also Board of Elections, a Finance Committee member of the People Project for the Greater Messina Chamber of Commerce, Board of Directors, as well as an active board participant on the Messina DRI, which is Downtown Revitalization Initiative Board, second vice chair of the St. Lawrence County Democratic Committee, and also a New York State Democratic State Committee representative for District 118. Whew. So it didn't just spring on you to be politically involved. This is something that you've been involved in your community for some time.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the district then. It looks like the 11th district in St. Lawrence County encompasses the town of Stockholm and part of the town of Potsdam. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And I'm sure a beautiful area with great people. So what are some of the issues that are coming up with your constituents?
The issues of District 11 are the same as every district in St. Lawrence County. We have a high unemployment rate. We have a big problem with opioids. That's a really big problem right now. The overall feeling, I think, is a little down. We need to bring in some jobs. We need to come together as a community. And I think the legislative board that's there now has been working to build up our fund balance. And I think it's time for me. It's just time to take the next step.
So as a business owner, I would imagine business interests in the economy are a primary focus of your campaign. Is there anything specific that you look toward as far as regional development? I know the DRI, which we're going to talk about, Messina, it looks like was on the wrong end of that. It went to
Saranac Lake won this year.
Okay, so probably a little disappointing, but we're dealing with some headaches and some turmoil with our DRI here. So do you think that kind of top-down injection of capital is useful, or I guess do you think it's also best to incorporate that with maybe a more organic sense of development and kind of marry the two together? Because I know there's been a lot of discussions around Strong Towns Plattsburgh here about how development is done. Because sometimes if you can just come in with a top-down approach and just try to put something new in and kind of expect things to happen, there's been a lot of disappointment, I'm sure, historically here in Clinton County, most likely in St. Lawrence County. So How do you think that long-term development happens? I'm guessing through education, unions, workforce development, things of that nature. So what can you do as a county legislator to help foster that?
Well, first, I'd like to say that the DRI initiative, what it did in our community was spark hope. And so, although we didn't win this year, I think that we will come back stronger next year with a better plan, a more developed plan, and we'll be ready to present that. And hopefully next year we'll win. I think the first thing is the mindset. You know, people feel really down. Our downtowns are falling apart. We don't have a lot of people that are coming in to invest in them. So we're really trying to build the downtowns up and drive commerce back downtown. So the spark that it ignited, I think that was really great. That's why we brought our business to downtown Massena. We bought a building and it was refinished, and there's not a lot of businesses on downtown Massena, but since we've come in, we've seen 3 or 4 other businesses start to relocate there. So, you know, it's just that spark of interest. It takes just one domino.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, because I unfortunately I don't make it out to that part of the area too often, to be completely honest with you. And you know, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. The infrastructure, I think, is, you know, somewhat difficult to navigate to get over there. But I think in general, there's great education. You know, Potsdam, Clarkson, St. Lawrence, just amazing educational institutions. But how do you keep those people here? Do you have any types of theories for that? It just sounds like you think just building the family and building a locus point like your business, and one thing will lead to another, and over time, because yeah, driving through Massena, I think there's the movie theater and then not much else.
So keeping our youth here is very hard. We have great universities, but when you graduate, it doesn't mean that there's a job for you. What we need to do is work with our economic development agencies, our Chamber of Commerce, to try to bring in living wage jobs. Many people, when you say living wage jobs, I don't think they understand the term as opposed to employment versus living wage. So you can bring in a lot of employment, you know, restaurants or a retail store, but people can't necessarily support their family on that wage. There isn't retirement generally that goes along with it. Many times there's not benefits. So when I say living wage job, I mean a job that people can work one shift. They can come home. They can go to sports with their children. They can go to after-school activities. They have enough money to pay the bills at the end of the day, and hopefully they have a retirement or some kind of benefit that goes along with it.
Yeah, and those things are harder to get as we're seeing. You know, the union presence is slowly eroding over time, and you know, I think I'll just leave that there. But I think one of the things I'm seeing is, you know, I'd like to see maybe a little bit more diverse of an economy too. It seems like we have, you know, obviously healthcare, corrections, teachers. Those are kind of your middle class jobs. Obviously, you have the plumbers, the technicians. Otherwise, there's a lot of those here in the North Country. But do you think there's anything that we can do? One thing that I noticed driving out for that dinner was the turbines that are up. I'm a huge proponent of that. I think it potentially helps, but again, not necessarily a huge jobs creator. I mean, there's some techs, but where do you see that going? Because one of the things, actually, let's segue into the Bitcoin issue, because this is an issue that's kind of similar to that insofar as there's some investment, like with the solar and wind. But as far as Bitcoin is concerned, I think everyone's kind of trying to figure out, well, where is that investment and those resources? Where's it going, right? That's become a huge issue now with Massena. I think talk a little bit about Bitcoin and what's going on in Massena.
So Bitcoin is coming into Massena and investing, and people are excited. I have some concerns personally about Bitcoin. Bitcoin truthfully does not require a lot of employment. So my concern would be if the company comes in and is going to say we're going to allot 20, 25 jobs, how can we make sure that they hold those jobs, right? Because part of recruiting employment and recruiting businesses to come to Northern New York, we have cheap power that can be offered. Yeah. And Bitcoin needs a lot of power, and they know that we have that power. So I want to make sure, or I would hope that we would be able to get them to promise that they can hold on to those jobs, that we don't give them the power and then the jobs fade away, right? Because the great thing about a good paying job is people feel comfortable and they start to invest their money. They buy homes, they buy cars. And so if that job is no longer needed and then is eliminated, where does it leave those employees? So, you know, if we're able to draw in business because of the cheap power, I want to make sure that it goes to businesses that are going to increase their employment, that they're not going to stay stagnant just so that they have the power. Let's bring in organizations that want to employ more and more.
Yeah, no, I think that's very well said, and I guess the issue I just have is I think tying to what and let's try and get in this a little bit, the rooftop highway and the infrastructure issue, because I think you're right, right. I'm actually kind of fascinated in the Bitcoin. I did an episode on Bitcoin. If our listeners are interested, I can get it if you're not. But it's fascinating from a number of different perspectives. I mean, the technology is potentially innovative. Blockchain technology, the way to secure these transactions. I think there's something there with blockchain technology. The Bitcoin, I think, is a little bit more speculative, right? Because we don't, as you're saying, you don't want to have all this cheap power and invest in something, and well, the price of a Bitcoin, I think, at some point it just fluctuates wildly. I mean, at some point I think they were worth something like well over $10,000 a Bitcoin, maybe 24,000 a Bitcoin was the cap, and then it went down. And it's a nightmare, and we don't even necessarily know it's going to be worth anything in 10 years. So it seems like to your point, that's we want to invest in things that we know are going to create jobs, and without any type of kind of promise or something in an agreement, perhaps, then it's hard to necessarily trust that. So let's talk into the infrastructure issue. So the rooftop highway, I've been involved in local politics here in the North Country long enough to know that it's been going on for generations. 40 years, I think, they've been talking about this. Where is that on the list of your concerns from your constituents? I'm sure you're going door to door asking your constituents what they hope to have happen in the next 5, 10 years, or I guess 2. What are the length of terms over there? 4 years. You
4
said.
years.
Okay.
Term is 4 years.
So the next 4 years, then, what are your constituents telling you that they want you to focus on? Is infrastructure part of that?
Infrastructure is a big part of it. Unfortunately, the rooftop highway I-98 is very divisive in our community. You have people that really want it, and they understand the importance of having transportation to bring in, these jobs that we're talking about. And then you have people that are just completely against it. They don't want to see it happen, whether it's for environmental reasons. They're worried about the towns being bypassed and what it will do to the local businesses. That's a really big issue. I personally think that to propel our county, we need the highway to come in.
Yeah, and I'm not going to disagree with you because, again, I think that that's kind of the big reason why people like myself and others don't necessarily make it out there that far, because it's kind of a pain. And it's very interesting, though, to see all the buggies. I had forgotten what a large Amish community there was out there. Do they vote?
No.
Okay. So I guess we don't have to worry about their concerns. No, I'm just kidding. But on that note, infrastructure. So broadband is an issue that's been very, very a hot issue lately. I know the state government tried to do a lot around broadband. They made a lot of promises about universal coverage. I don't necessarily think we're there yet. Billy Jones has been doing a lot of work here. Are you in one of the areas that are represented by Mr. Jones, or are you in
Nope.
just outside?
Just outside.
Okay.
Outside.
Where's that? Where do you see broadband going? I imagine that our listeners and your constituents are very interested in the future of broadband.
Right. Well, I do know that New York State is working with their New York State Broadband for All, and so that is an initiative that is being worked on. We live in a very rural area, a lot of farmland, a lot of roads that have 1 or 2 people living on the road, which is a problem. SLIC is working very hard to get broadband to everyone, but unfortunately, I think the deterrent is the price. Many people maybe don't realize that broadband are actually charged a real estate tax.
Oh, okay. I don't think I was aware of that even.
Yeah. So it's taxed as realty. I believe the figure was for every mile, it could be up to $25,000.
Okay, so very, very pricey.
They also have to rent the use of the poles. They have to have authorization to utilize the poles. So it does take time. Lawyers.
I know. They ruin everything.
It does take time. I think it will come. I think it's vital that it does come. I mean, for someone like myself who has a small business who started an online presence, and that's how we began, having the internet connection.
It's actually in your personal economic benefit as a business owner to be pushing broadband, but...
It is, and I, as a business owner, and it goes farther, even out to farming. The large farmers being able to use social media and to be able to push their agenda, and so people can better understand how hard it is to be a farmer. I mean, there's a lot that I think people will benefit from the broadband, but I think it's coming.
Yeah, so we'll keep our eye on it to take our time, because that's fascinating too, because the farming aspect, I'm actually kind of kicking myself right now that I just heard of that I haven't really gotten into it yet with the farm. We've talked to people like Al Staple Brewing Company who have very close connections to the farming community, Mace Chasm and a couple other places down there in Essex County that are doing some really cool things with the farm to table movement. But let's segue a little bit and go back to the whole Alcoa stuff. So that must have just been devastating. I know here in Clinton County, up in Champlain, the Pfizer closing affected my family personally. My dad worked there for a long time. How's the community reacting to that plant closure, and what are are there any benefits that are coming from it, economic development or otherwise?
So the closing, Alcoa and GM both closed in
Sorry
effect in
about that.
Messina, and that was devastating for our community. We are lucky enough to be able to hold on to the Alcoa plant that we have now. Because of the cheap power, that's what's holding us on right now. My family worked at Alcoa, Reynolds. It was Reynolds, the plant that closed, my whole life. Yep, Reynolds is the plant that closed. And so it was very sad to see it close. My grandfather, he was the international president of Aluminum Brick and Glass Workers, so he oversaw that plant before the steelworkers merged with ABG. And it was almost like the closing of an era, if that makes sense. It was very sad. Since then, we see property rates go down. We see real estate is going down. Businesses are leaving. I don't like to use the word ghost town, but unfortunately, we don't have people coming in and reinvesting again. So it's been really hard on the community.
It's obviously not an easy transition, but in the wake of, we're talking about manufacturing jobs, right, mostly. Guys and women who work very, very hard, takes a toll on their bodies. What are you seeing with the healthcare in the area? Is healthcare delivery still an issue? And how, as county legislator, are you going to help to help expand and bring rates and reimbursement rates down a little bit? Because I think that's a lot of the issues that we're dealing with. Is that the cost of healthcare is still rising.
The cost of healthcare is, yes, it's always rising. And the men and women that work in these manufacturing jobs, it's unbelievable what they work with and what they work through. We have a lot of, work injuries, I believe, that are happening.
My grandfather was an iron worker,
Yeah.
so, I've seen some of those, him with knees and just, their body physically breaks down.
Yes,
over time.
absolutely. Right now, I think locally we're doing a great job. Our hospitals are really great, our nursing staff. So we have a really great group of medical care. But the problem is insurance. A lot of people just don't have the insurance.
And Obamacare here and there maybe patched up, but we need a longer term solution. And obviously that's not something, what can you do at the local level? Because obviously federally we tried some things and that's still a little bit of a patchwork. The state's trying to step in and I think does a lot. Locally, what do you think can be done as far as protecting people and getting more access to health care? Sounds like keeping the facilities that you have staffed and intact.
Keep making, and sometimes even if there's not something specific that we can do at a local level, it's just bringing attention to it and constantly drawing that attention to state and federal government. Saying we need you, we need help. And I think sometimes just that light shining just makes the government aware that we're still here.
Yeah, so let's take that transition and get to the light, because we've obviously talked about a lot of the economic issues that Messina is dealing with, and Plattsburgh, to a certain extent, is dealing with them as well. But I do want to talk about innovation, of course, and innovation in politics. And I think one of the things that I really took away at the dinner was just how much fun you and even the crew up there in St. Lawrence County had. It was a really fun time, jokes, just taking pictures, social media. It was a really, really great atmosphere, a lot of light, a lot of positivity, even in these difficult economic times. So is that something that you're trying to bring to politics? Is that a way that you're trying to innovate within the political spheres to try and make it more fun and a little bit less stuffy and,
Absolutely. Politics are important for everyone to be involved in, but a lot of people, they don't want to step out. You're right. It seems stuffy and a lot of meetings. But I think there is another side. And while making a difference, we also have a lot of connections that we make with people. We do have a lot of fun. And so to bring out a younger group, which I think a lot of people, especially in this election, are feeling themselves very motivated to get out and vote. We most recently had a new chapter of Young Democrats in St. Lawrence County come up, and they are motivated to help. They want to be at every event. So I'm excited that they are taking part now. But yeah, this dinner was really a lot of fun. It gave us a chance to show the other side, not just sitting listening to speeches, but being able to connect with each other and the friendships and the family that you form.
Yeah, and a great group of people. I mean, had the opportunity to do some, rubbing elbows, as they say, and I just everyone was so kind and just very welcoming. I hadn't made it out to that part of the district in very often, as I alluded to, but now I have to because just meeting the people and I think a lot like around here, right? It's just very salt of the earth people, not a whole lot of egos. Just let's get this done. Let's come together. Um, so it was interesting. You said the Young Dems then, because one of the things that was kind of shocking to me was I went to the college. I was chair of the City Democrats here for a while, and trying to do some political organizing myself, and trying to make it fun if you can. But that's not as easy these days. Is I was kind of shocked at the college, Plattsburgh State. They didn't have a Young Democrats. They had a Young Democratic Socialists of America, which I'm completely fine with. I like what the DSA does, but I thought it was a little concerning as well that there's young Republicans and there's no young Democrats. I was, as I was thinking about doing the show, one of the things I would hope to introduce, and hopefully not catching you too off guard, is kind of what makes you a Democrat. Because I think in these days where kids are probably looking at the political scene, just coming of age, 17, 18, and they're probably disgusted, and maybe rightfully so. What was it that drew you to a party? Because a lot of people, I think, if you're not paying attention, just, pox on both houses. It looks like both sides are acting like children. What was it about the Democratic Party that drew you in?
Well, I was raised a Democrat, but what keeps me a Democrat?
But it wasn't branded anywhere.
It wasn't. But it was the overall feel in the household, and that is. I believe that the Democrats truly fight for equal rights, for human rights, for women's rights, for LGBTQ rights, for workers' rights, and it's a constant. It doesn't feel like the fight is only when we need publicity. It is always, and that was our household. Does that mean I only vote Democrat? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I believe in being bipartisan. I think a good idea is a good idea, no matter who has the idea. I learned that from Ernie. I will always vote for whoever I believe has the best intentions and will do the best job.
All right, very well said then. So, equal opportunity, you don't have to have the D next to your name. If you're a Republican and you stand for what I stand for, then there's a good chance that you're going to at least get my consideration.
We don't have to be on the same page on every issue.
All right. So I wanted to incorporate the family aspect of this because, as we alluded to earlier, you're a mother of 4 children. I've said on this program many times, and I'm sure I'll say it again, that I actually think women are particularly well suited for politics for a number of different reasons. They're more compassionate. They're consensus builders. They just inherently care more about family and community, I think, just historically and based on historical gender roles. So how do you think being a mother of 4 children helped to make you who you are and helped to make that decision to run for politics maybe a little bit easier?
Being a mother of 4, I've learned a lot of patience and compassion. Really what drove me over the edge was watching all of the children in our community grow, go to high school, go to college, and then leave. So with 4 children, I want to at least have children, some of them, that can remain in our community if they want to. And so as they're getting older, I have a daughter that's going to be going into high school. It's time to get real. So it really is just kind of looking at them and wanting them to be able to have the same opportunity that I have to remain here.
So what are we looking at right now with the county legislature out there in St. Lawrence as far as the men-women divide? I mean, I think our listeners probably know that it's about 25% or less of elected office holders in this country are women. So are we close to that in St. Lawrence County?
No, on our board currently there's 15 legislators, 1 is female.
Okay, so far below that.
Far below.
And we're here in Clinton County where it's 1 in 10. So North Country, we could be doing a little bit better as far as that's concerned. Do you have any thoughts on why so few women are involved in politics? I mean, we had Janet Dupree on, and she was really a trailblazer up here and talked about, in really stark terms, a lot of the sexism and just flat out, you don't deserve to be here. It was really quite shocking. I hear stories about that all the time, but to actually hear it, from someone as well respected as Janet Dupree was, it was kind of shocking. And I think we can do better. Do you have any, ideas?
I think that she's correct. I think that even as a woman who has a seat at the table, it doesn't mean you have a voice at the table. If you do voice your opinion, you are treated a little bit differently. Absolutely. Unfortunately, instead of it being a good idea, it could be an argumentative idea. If we're not on the same page, instead of it being constructive criticism, it's seen as opposition. It's a tough pill to swallow.
And I've heard many stories of women saying something in a board or other setting, and then a male cohort saying that 10 seconds later, and the reaction's completely different.
Completely different.
What a great idea. How come someone didn't think of that?
That is 100% correct.
Obviously, being a mother seems to be something that you take a lot of pride in. And what else do you think your constituents are going to get from you being a mother? You're obviously going to be listening to a lot of different sides.
Being a mother and being a business owner, I wear a lot of different hats.
Well, you certainly have to budget for both.
You do have to. So I think, the family aspect, the budgeting aspect is important. But really, to me, it's being able to have that strong hold as a parent. You have to really be a strong proponent in your house, but you also have to have that empathy and that listening skills. Budgeting is very important if you're going to run a strong household, and that's something that carries over into my business also. But for me, besides just being a mother, it's being a woman, and really, we have over 50% females are in St. Lawrence County, so they should be represented on the board, correct? Yeah. It shouldn't just, one is not acceptable.
Yeah, so, and obviously the reason we're having you here today is because you're doing some amazing things, both from innovating in business, innovating in politics, trying to make it fun. Let's talk a little bit about some recent accolades. You were recognized as 20 under 40 for NNY. Tell us a little bit about that publication, and you must be honored to receive that honor.
Yeah, Northern New York Business Magazine recently honored me with the 20 under 40. And so that's what they recognize are 20 people in Northern New York who they consider emerging leaders. That's a wonderful thing to be honored with. I was shocked, but excited. I mean, the slate that I'm on is quite a group, really. And I was nominated by someone in the community. So to have someone feel strongly enough that they think that I am making a difference in the area, that definitely touched my heart.
So any other type of endorsements? I think you said maybe Organized Labor has helped you out a little bit. Yeah. Check out the website then. Where can our listeners find your website?
It would be my Facebook page, so that's at Nancy Arquette, SLCD11.
All right. So we'll provide links to our listeners, of course. So as we're sitting here today, I believe it's the 22nd of October. I've heard today 15 days.
Yeah, we're on the final push.
Yeah. So it's GOTV-ish, right? I mean, how's that process working out for you?
Great. The final 15 days, final couple of weeks here, we're just going to be door knocking, phone banking. We have some events lined up to really get the vote out. We have a really great group of representatives in Northern New York who are really working together and teaming up, whether it's the congressional candidates, assembly, your town or your county candidates. Everyone's really working together as a team. Again, we've got a lot of youth this year that really want to get out and help, like young Democrats. So, and the union, we're all going door to door and working really hard. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. So for our listeners, they just have to like it. How can they get involved? Do they private message you?
Yeah.
Or?
So, like the page to get any follow-ups and to see where we're at. If you want to help, you can private message. My email is also listed. So send us an email and we will get right in touch with you. Phone banking is going to be really big. Making sure that the night of elections, people are at the polls or they've gone to the polls. People forget. They come home from work. They're tired. So making phone calls to make sure people get out and vote before 9 o'clock is going to be important.
This is it 6 a.m. For this election? It is, yeah, 6 a.m. to 9. Okay, so a long day. Okay. Are you going to have some rides if some of our listeners out there in some of the more remote areas of St. Lawrence County?
We can definitely organize some rides for people who are not able to get to the polls but do want to have a voice.
Okay, so what's next? Are there town halls? Is there an event?
I will be doing a meeting with the League of Women Voters. Again, the final weeks is really door to door and making that contact with your voters. I am going to schedule a meet and greet the week before elections for anyone who has final questions or wants to meet face to face.
All right. Any parting thoughts? Any piece of advice? So November 6th, 6 a.m., 9 p.m. Is there any ways to find your polling place? I'm sure there's some resources.
Yep. And I'll have all the links on the Facebook page, or you can also go to the St. Lawrence County Board of Elections website, type in your address, and they'll let you know where you need to be.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So November 6th is a big day. Thank you so much for joining us, Nancy. Once again, that's Nancy Arquette, who is the owner and proprietor, along with her partner, Brittany Murtaugh, of Two Mama Birds, located in downtown Main Street in Messina. Telephone number 315-250-3892. Again, we have some links, the Facebook, the website. Check that out. Beautiful, beautiful pieces of artwork. Yeah, thanks again to our listeners, of course. We couldn't do it without you. Share, like, comment, all that type of stuff, because, again, we need to keep the conversation going, and to be able to move the North Country forward, we need our listeners to get involved as well. So let us know what you think. We have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter most of the time. And thanks again. Looking forward to having everyone back for episode 40 of Why Wait Innovate, only on North Volume.